Come on. Break it down now. Break it down now.
Welcome back inside the bunker. It's Friday, August 29th. I'm Kevin Bunk, as always, coming to you weekdays for BTO Media, discussing the NFL, discussing the world of football. And today is just an all-time surprise emergency episode. Basically, I told you guys there was no episode after Wednesday this week. It was Wednesday and then again next Tuesday to kick off week one, to really lock into football week. But my mind was blown last night, as I'm sure yours was too, when Micah Parsons got moved to the Green Bay Packers. And we discussed it on Wednesday. We discussed it last week. We discussed it the first week of August. We've been hitting Parsons too much on this show. Parsons and the Cowboys have gotten the spotlight they get everywhere else on this show, and I try not to do that, but it's been the demand. And Micah actually gets moved. I told you Wednesday. I told you the first week of the season, of August, I told you all summer long, I thought Parsons got moved the next year or the year after. I thought they really would have settled on 2025, but they didn't. And there's so much to unpack on both sides of this. I made a video last night that you can see on TikTok and Instagram with immediate thoughts, where I'm really high on the Packers. I'm a little less, high on them, a little less crazy about the move. And I've mellowed out this morning after a night of sleeping on it and really looking through everything. I just watched the full Jerry Jones press conference. That's where I want to start, is with Jerry in Dallas. The press conference, first of all, is about 25 minutes of absolutely nothing. He does an 11-minute monologue where there's one question to start it. He doesn't answer it and just goes on an 11-minute tangent about the trade, about the way they operate in Dallas, about Kenny Clark. And that's all fine, but it literally does nothing to reassure Dallas fans in this moment that could feel like rock bottom. For a Cowboys fan to see the face of their franchise, I thought Parsons was the most popular player on the team, the most talked about player in the National Football League, the most highest regarded player. I don't think CeeDee Lamb has the personality Parsons has to be the face of the franchise. But for Cowboys fans to see the face of that franchise, other than Jerry, be moved last night to a conference rival has to be incredibly disheartening. It's got to be deflating a week before you play the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field, where you're probably losing with or without Parsons. This whole summer, this whole spring, last summer too, it's just been stress with these contracts. And to see Parsons get moved at this point in the year, that's a terrible way to start football season. 31 other fan bases, especially in Green Bay, are amped for next week to start. And now Eagles fans even more. If you thought they couldn't be more hyped up after a Super Bowl win and opening the year against Dallas, who's absolutely inferior, now that Parsons isn't going to be there for sure, Eagles fans are ecstatic today. Cowboys fans are not. Cowboys fans are the one group of fans right now in the National Football League that are completely out on this season already before it starts. And that could change with a big win on Thursday next week. I'm not going to rule them out completely. Division game to start it against the Super Bowl team, but I just can't see this being a positive season for them. Jerry Jones did not handle this in the proper way. This is why I've always expressed that they need some sort of a general manager there other than the owner. It's obviously not going to happen. Peter Schrager made a great point that Jerry is able to do this now and not in the spring, which is when I would have done it, because you can get a return that fans maybe aren't too thrilled with, that ownership hypothetically wouldn't be too thrilled with, but it doesn't matter because when you're the owner and the GM, nobody's firing you. There's no real pressure on your job and on your position. There's no hot seat for Jerry Jones, the general manager, because his boss is himself. So the Cowboys decide to do it now. They say that this has been brewing since the spring, but it moved quickly this last week, Jerry said at the press conference. And by the way, at this press conference, Stephen Jones just sits there. I mean, he's not even involved in this. The only time I saw him speak was to correct Jerry, who continues to call Micah Parsons Michael Parsons. And the only time he speaks is to say his name's Micah, not Michael. And he looks pretty ticked off at this, that he's sitting here at this. I don't know if he's upset about the trade. I don't know if they didn't agree on how this should go down, because Stephen Jones does have a hand in that organization, but obviously does not have final say. And he did not look thrilled sitting in that chair in front of a room full of media yesterday to discuss the Micah Parsons trade with his father. And it's a tough spot to be in, especially in Dallas. But the fact that this is where we are 7 days before their season opens against the Super Bowl champion Eagles is astonishing. Just absolute stunner last night when this went down. And credit to Green Bay for getting this done. We've been making videos about this all week long, all summer long, but we've really heated up the Green Bay thing this week because I've trusted the reports and the rumors that I've seen. You have to try and sift through and find people who have track records, even if they're not Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or Tom Pelissero or Diana Rossini. If they're not big-time reporters, they still can have credibility. And when you sift through people on social media who have big Packers followings, who have potential connections to the organization, same with Dallas, and they're saying that there are conversations being had, you have to figure out who is being real, who could actually be in the know, and then take it. And we had a couple people that I said on the show Wednesday were in the know. The smoke was real. And people on TikTok, fans on TikTok, Instagram, trying to tell me the smoke is not real. You don't know what you're talking about. And that's fine. I don't need to know what I'm talking about, but the people I listen to know what they're talking about. And they clearly did, because this trade goes down, and Green Bay, who was never an aggressive player like this in the offseason with Brian Gutekunst, who still is the general manager, decide this offseason they're going to draft the first-round wide receiver. They're going to trade for Micah Parsons. They did a great job this entire offseason with building the team and doing things now that the fans did not usually see them do and have always wanted them to do. And a big part of that is the addition of Ed Policy this summer, son of Carmen Policy, who, as far as the timing of this trade, it's a little, convenient because we get reminded in the Jerry Jones Cowboys documentary on Netflix, Carmen Policy sent Charles Haley to Dallas. His son now, Ed Policy, took over as president of the Packers in July for Mark Murphy, who had to retire, had to step down due to age. And Ed Policy comes in after the draft, so credit Golden and the draft and free agency to Mark Murphy and Brian Gutekunst. But you can't tell me Ed Policy didn't have a hand in getting aggressive late in the summer and making this move for Micah Parsons. Policy, a guy who obviously has been in football his whole life and knows the game, knows the inner workings of front offices, knows the Dallas front office very well. He decides to step in here and, along with Brian Gutekunst and their board of trustees, board of advisors in Green Bay, get this done. This is a great trade for them. They give up the 2 first-round picks. They give up Kenny Clark. And for Green Bay, you're looking at it on their side of things saying, okay, so we basically just gave up 2 draft picks and our worst contract. Kenny Clark's a good player. He's no slouch in this deal. But that is less of a return than Jamal Adams got, a safety who can't cover the pass in the Jets-Seahawks trade, than Khalil Mack got draft capital-wise in the Bears-Raiders trade, than Jay Cutler got, then Deshaun Watson got, and I get their quarterbacks, and Watson was a unique case because he's been awful after the trade, but he was a top 5 quarterback at the time. But this is me saying, Parsons should be in that tier. Parsons should be in those categories of guys who were moved for big value. And yes, he was. Multiple first-round picks is big value. But still, it's only 2. They're going to be bad picks. They're going to be at the bottom of the first round. Dallas might be towards the top of it now. I'm really not too high on them with Brian Schottenheimer and with the defense that they have. I don't think Kenny Clark is going to be this incredible run stopper. His pass rush ability stunk last year. He is a good run stopper, but I don't think he's going to reinvent the Cowboys defense, because that's kind of what Jerry was saying is we'll sacrifice the pass rush to get the run stop. And in theory, that's great. And he tries to make it sound like he's smarter than everyone football-wise, and he does the whole, well, when teams couldn't pass against us, they'd run against us, and then we couldn't stop the run. Well, guess what? If Kenny Clark can stop the run, teams are just going to pass against you now because you don't have a good pass rusher. He says they have this incredible depth at pass rusher. I'll believe it when I see it this offseason, but I'm not buying in on Dallas at all. I'm not buying in on them defensively. I don't think Kenny Clark changes that. For Green Bay, they're going to have to plug the middle up a little bit here, but they should be fine because they have so much depth defensively that they should be able to get away with this. Clark was one of their worst contracts. They come in, they need to give Micah this massive deal too, $47 million a year. Oh my goodness. You got to get it done. But that is, I haven't seen the structure yet. I haven't seen the cap breakdowns, the implications on the cap hit. But man, that is an intense trade haul for Micah Parsons when you consider the contract too. That's part of why the Cowboys can't get exactly what they'd want back too, because the Packers are saying we're about to give away, an eighth or a seventh of our salary cap space. So I can't just it's a fifth really of the salary cap space. He's like, I can't just give you all of our picks and another player or two because I need to give this guy $47 million a year now. And we had predicted 4 for 80 on the BTO Instagram account. You can go see that. That was the day before. That was on Wednesday. 4 for 180 million, was my contract prediction. He ends up getting 4 for 188. It did sound like he was going to reset the market. This is great news for a lot of other people too. Aiden Hutchinson being one. He's going to have a chance to reset the market again this offseason when he goes for negotiations with Detroit. Then you have the NFC East, the rest of these guys as a whole, with the Giants, Commanders, and Eagles. This is awesome news for all of them, but you still have to see them in the NFC. Let's pull back, though, and go back to the Green Bay element of this. Because last night I said in my video, and I still agree with it, they get thrust from fringe wildcard contender, 10-11 win team, to possibly 13-14 wins now. Jordan Love's a big wild card in that. How does he play? Can he give you a consistent full season, a full 5 months of really good quarterback play? We're yet to really see that. But they get thrust now into that category of, if they won 14 games and went to the Super Bowl, I'm not going to be surprised. I would have been before the Parsons trade. I'm not going to be now. But there are flaws in Parsons' game. He is not a good run stopper. He grades terribly against the run. And for $47 million a year, he becomes a player that isn't going to be very beneficial in run-heavy atmospheres against teams like Detroit, against potentially Chicago this year, who I think is going to run the ball a lot more. And Minnesota is able to run the ball, but you're not going to see that run-heavy nature. But how about San Francisco in the postseason? How about when you get there and see Philadelphia? Parsons is kind of a zero in those scenarios. So how can you supplement that now? And it's okay for him to be a zero in those scenarios because he's going to give you the best pass rusher in football, arguably, from week 1 to week 18. And maybe the first round of the playoffs. When you get to Philadelphia in the postseason, when you get to San Francisco in the postseason, we have seen Detroit too, Parsons become a non-factor. And not only is he a non-factor, oftentimes he's a minus. So Dallas saw that firsthand, and they say, well, we're not going to give him the money. We can't agree on a contract that he's worth because our run defense is awful, and he's a big part of that. But we're going to trade him and get as much value as we can. Obviously, Jerry Jones' experience, he loves to bring up the Herschel Walker trade. This is not quite 5 draft picks, but it still is a pretty significant haul for them. 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. Again, it's a great value trade, I think, on both sides for this time of the year. But if Dallas could have somehow gotten Parsons to play this season and then done this in February, you probably get the haul that the fans would have been happier with. Jerry said they had criteria for teams. Green Bay fit it. You needed a D tackle that was in the league and you were willing to give up. That's Kenny Clark. And they had to be good. Kenny Clark's a good defensive tackle. He's a Pro Bowl guy, 29 years old right now. So Clark, who showed a little regression last year, was a guy they identified. You had to have the cap space to pay Parsons right away. And obviously Green Bay did. And once you get Kenny Clark off the books, that made it even easier. But there were very few teams that fit that criteria. I think New England may have been one. I think Seattle may have been one. But it wasn't an easy trade to get going in August because teams usually are trying to fill most of their cap space in free agency, in the draft, and then in this undrafted period throughout the summer, or this unsigned, this waiver wire period throughout the summer for free agents, veteran guys who waited out through the spring into the summer. And teams usually don't have too much salary cap space. Green Bay does a phenomenal job keeping their years ahead in really good shape. That's why they were able to swing this move. They're always ready financially to add. They just haven't too often. But now, in the last 2 years, the Packers have signed a Pro Bowl running back in Josh Jacobs. They've signed a monster playmaker at safety in Xavier McKinney from the Giants, who was an All-Pro last year, one of the league's best ball hawks. You drafted a first-round wide receiver, and you've now traded for a Hall of Fame talent in their prime at just 26 years old. Green Bay fans can't ask for much more. Now it's on them. Now the pressure's on because they've made the moves. There's no more blaming the front office. Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love have pressure on them now because the pieces are in place. In theory, the front office did enough for the pieces to be there for them to win. And if they don't win, and if they don't make a run in the playoffs, win at least one game this year, hopefully 2 if you're in Green Bay, 2 is the minimum, I think, for fans, then there's going to be a lot of finger pointing at the head coach and the quarterback at the end of this season. There is pressure now in Green Bay. It's a small town, but they love their football and they love winning, and they haven't seen nearly enough of it in the last 3 decades. Yes, they have 2 Super Bowls, but they have not seen the level of postseason success that they should have in Green Bay. That is the standard there. It is not first-round exits. It's not getting rolled through by San Francisco every other year. They need to now step up at quarterback and head coach and be the people they were brought in to be and perform at the level that they're supposed to perform at. This is a really big move for Green Bay. It's a huge day for Packers fans. They are the most excited fan base now entering this season, except maybe Philadelphia for Thursday night's game. But Green Bay has a lot of juice right now. They have the momentum heading into the season. They have a tough division. They might be the second most talented team in that division. I'm still not putting their talent level above Detroit, but the Lions, we've spoken about it, had a lot of coaching turnover, had a lot of roster changes, offensive line, a lot of moving pieces. The interior does not look very good. Green Bay can potentially jump the Lions this year. It wouldn't be surprising. And they could also, of course, be better than Chicago and be better than Minnesota. If they won 13 games in this division, 12 might win you this division this year too, if they cannibalize each other inside of it. But if you win 12, 13 games this year in Green Bay and you win that division, it's a great feeling. It's a great year. They should be a top 2 seed, a top 4 team in the NFC regardless record-wise. But, man, Green Bay did it. They did it. I'm still very surprised that this happened. Credit to Ed Policy again. Credit to Brian Gutekunst. Credit to the entire organization for getting that done because this is not an easy thing to swing. This is a very rare thing to happen. On August 28th, you get an all-pro level player through a trade who's only 26 years old, and you negotiate the contract as quick as possible, and you're probably going to get him on the field next Sunday. Whether he plays a lot or not, I'd be shocked if Parsons doesn't dress next Sunday because he seems to be in game shape. He seems like he kept himself going this offseason, and he now can end all of the antics that he had going this summer because Parsons did not do himself many favors with Dallas, but obviously that was all intentional, and he wanted out. And Jerry addressed that last night, that the way he conducted himself this summer and at that preseason game was unacceptable and not the way you do things professionally. And I totally agree, but Jerry Jones knows a thing or two about doing things in an unprofessional manner, like negotiating a contract for Parsons without the agent present. So a lot of blame to go around here, both on the player, mostly on the organization, but a lot of credit to Green Bay as well. And I will say this as my closing thought. We could be sitting here 5 years from now and saying that Parsons trade worked out for Dallas because they got 2 really good players with those first-round picks. They got Kenny Clark, who gave them some really good snaps and usage over 2-3 years, and it made them a better team. They didn't have to pay Parsons, and maybe Green Bay is still sitting there without a conference championship appearance in the Jordan Love era, and Parsons has been the same 12-sack-a-year guy, but without the playoff pedigree that we haven't seen from him yet. The Packers need to develop that. I called him Reggie White yesterday. Not the player. The players aren't even close. But this is the Reggie White move for the Packers. This is the final touch in their minds to a Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a fun year for Packers fans. It's going to be an interesting year in Dallas because they have a coach who I could see getting fired after year one. They have a quarterback who's the highest paid man in the NFL, but isn't very good in big spots either. They don't have a very good roster. They have one of the best playmakers in the league in CeeDee Lamb. They added George Pickens. They don't have any running backs. I mean, they're all over the place in Dallas. Fascinating season for the Cowboys to watch. I could see him at 4 or 5 wins, and I could see somehow them pulling out 9 or 10. We're going to see. We're going to see, and we're going to follow it all year. I'll be back Tuesday with a full NFL preview episode. Tuesday also, Beat the Odds Gambling. The first show with Mike Merlo and Bo Dragon releases. I already saw it. They recorded it yesterday, and it was fantastic. So you're going to have to check that out if you're into the sports gambling scene. I'll be sticking with my fantasy football stuff throughout the year too, but that'll happen on this show. We're going to have plenty more guests on this show throughout the offseason or throughout the NFL season. And we'll continue, of course, with everything else going on at BTO Media. So I appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube for not just The Bunker, but all of our long-form content. And I'll see you after the weekend. Packers fans, enjoy it.